Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Pokemon, the first movie, aka Mewtwo Strikes Back. Now, before I get into this movie, I have seen the show before, very long time ago when I was a kid, and I know, and I'm at the area where there's like various amount of Pokemon that I can't even keep track of. Like, there's supposed to be like what 1,000 right now. But I'm starting off with the first movie that came out in 1999, where at the time it was at 150 or maybe 51 if you count Mew in this movie. I'll talk about it. But yeah, let's. But it has been a long time since I've seen the movies. I've only seen the first two movies. I haven't seen three and up, but I have seen Detective Pikachu. But which will end the series from there. And let's see how this goes. Let's get into this movie. We open with the birth of the 150th Pokemon called Mewtwo, who will only be introduced in this movie, as I don't recall meeting him from the TV show. But the only thing I remember coming up in a few minutes, as he doesn't know who he is nor what he wakes up as an experiment and breaks out into freedom and kills the doctors experimenting on him, as he was a copy of the rare Pokemon who's number 151, in the future, named Mew. Oh, and I should tell you now, I'm not doing Pikachu's Vacation in case if anybody got thrown off by that, so I apologize. Mewtwo destroys the building of the laboratory while the final Pokemon master named Giovanni takes him for his psychic powers and beats every single Pokemon trainer, including the main character's nemesis, Gary, who comes off like a jerk on the TV show. And this is the clip I remember from the show, as Gary's Pokemon is beaten, and he blacks out and says he has seen no Pokemon like that before, as is explained in the movie. As Mewtwo doesn't know why he's here, as Giovanni tells Mewtwo his purpose is to fight other Pokemon for him as a slave, and Mewtwo becomes his own person despite he's a Pokemon. And this first 10-minute prologue is all about what Mewtwo wants in this world, and I'm not convinced ruling the world is his thing. And the anime is fine, but I've seen better anime movies than this, as the title card felt very late 1999, which looks bad. We catch up with Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town along with his friends Misty and Brock, as well as Ash's Pokemon Pikachu, as well as Misty's Pokemon Togepi. While making food, Ash gets into a Pokemon battle with a random trainer whom Ash easily defeats all of his Pokemon with Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Pikachu. And the sound effects don't sound the same as in the TV show, but I get they're trying to do something different while Team Rocket, including Jesse James and their Pokemon who speaks English named Meowth, who I could never understand why he spoke English while the other Pokemon just say their names, but Meowth speaks English, as Ash, Misty, and Brock get selected by a number one Pokemon master to his gym on New Island, while Jesse, James, and Meowth learns where they're going, and Mew awakens to find Mewtwo. And I don't necessarily get why Mewtwo is the 150th Pokemon, as that was the original amount in the 1990s until Mew started to exist in the late 1990s. While a storm comes and people get stuck on land, while others like Ash, Misty, and Brock go to New Island. And is Ash a boy or a girl? As he has somewhat a girl's name, while I believe he's a boy, which is confusing enough as it is. Even though I haven't seen the shows for many, many years, but yeah, let's move on. Jesse, James, and Meowth give Ash, Misty, and Brock with their Pokemon Pikachu and Togepi, as Jesse, and James reveal themselves as Team Rocket. Meowth says, "Forget the motto," which is a smart idea because they're about to get splashed into the water. While Ash, Misty, and Brock get in the water and ride with Ash and Misty's Pokemon Staryu and Squirtle, and they suddenly arrive to New Island. And while me, while we happen to while they happen to hide and get there to see what Mewtwo is up to, or yeah, anyways, and they approach his slave, who happens to be Nurse Joy, which will be revealed a little later as they walk to a giant room and meet their other trainers. There, and Mew is cute at the way he sounds like a kitten and rides the blades on a giant fan of some kind, while some of the images look kind of bad, like in the late 1990s, in which, to be fair, this did come out in in November of 1999, which is the same month and year as Toy Story 2, which looks so much better than this, in my opinion. The Pokemon trainers meet the world's greatest Pokemon master, who happens to be Mewtwo, who happens to be a Pokemon. And how does a Pokemon act like a Pokemon master? Which doesn't make any sense, while they try to fight him off and get easily defeated like child's play. And that's when Nurse Joy is revealed as Mewtwo's slave, and Jesse, James, and Meowth find a way to under the gym in the laboratory as they get inside and find clones of Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise being created, while Mew is grabbed by a machine and almost taken in until it grabs a couple of hair from Meowth as it creates a clone of him, as they, with Mew, watch footage of what happened in the laboratory before the scientists are killed. As Ash challenges Mewtwo to a match with the clones versus their real Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise, while Mew follows them to the stadium. And do I care for the characters? Honestly, not really, as this is a very short movie with the world that doesn't make much sense, while we barely get enough time to get to know the characters, as that's what the TV show is for. They start the battle with the male trainer's Venusaur named Brew Brew, nicknamed otherwise, a female trainer's Blastoise nicknamed Shell Shocker, and Ash's Charizard, and they get defeated rather easily for the biggest Pokemon in the series, and Mewtwo wins and captures everybody else's Pokemon, even in their Pokeballs, and taken to a lab downstairs as they almost grab every single Pokemon, including Pikachu, who happens to fight every single cloned Pokeball, until he eventually gets captured and taken to a lab, where Ash goes after Pikachu in the lab and sees Jesse, James, and Meowth as he doesn't have time for their motto, and destroys the machine and gets every single Pokemon back, including Pikachu and others, as they unfortunately become clones and hatch out of the machine to go to Mewtwo, while the others get out of the machine and walk with Ash into a battle with Mewtwo. And the dialogue is corny for sure, as the writing in this doesn't make much sense. Ash and Pikachu and the Pokemon walk up to Mewtwo, challenging him as Ash tries to punch Mewtwo in the face and flies to a stoned roof, as Mew saves his life, and Mewtwo suddenly battles with Mew with the real versions of the Pokemon fighting against the clone versions. And while watching this movie twice for this review, I honestly thought Mewtwo was voiced by Keanu Reeves, but no, it's a different actor named Masachika Ichimura. Forgive me if I said that wrong, but I swear they sound somewhat alike. But But the performance by this actor is menacing, but he's not too scary for me. While the real Pokemon fight the cloned ones, a cloned Pikachu walks up to the real Pikachu and fights him, while the real Pikachu doesn't want to fight back, and Ash watches it as that's supposed to be dramatic because it doesn't make me sad. But don't get me wrong, Pikachu is cute, but I'm not connecting with this movie and I'm not having the best time with it, as the score was distracting me from enjoying the film, while the action sequences felt very disorienting. Ash tries to make the fight between Mew and Mewtwo and the real Pokemon versus the clone Pokemon fight to stop, as he turns into stone while the powers between Mew and Mewtwo hit him, and Pikachu runs to Ash after turning into stone and tears up, as does the other Pokemon, and turns Ash into a human again, as the storm stops and he wakes up and Mewtwo takes Mew and his clone Pokemon not to fight to live their lives. And the trainers get back to land where the storm is still going, as the Pokemon Center is now open with Nurse Joy returning to her position, and make people rest until the storm stops on land, and Ash, Misty, and Brock go outside as Ash sees a rare Pokemon he once saw on one of the early episodes, as Jesse, James, and Meowth are stuck on an island where they're in paradise. And Ash, Misty, and Brock walk into more adventures while credits roll to an after-credits scene where Mew flies back home And the climax made this movie kind of a mess, but how much of a mess was this movie? Let's talk about it in a rating. I'll give this movie a 4.3 out of 10. The anime in this thing is not bad, but I've seen better movies from other movies. I see better from other movies that are anime than this thing, as I don't really care for the characters, as that's what the TV show is for, as the image just feels very late 1990s, as I've seen it in other animated movies like Anastasia, for example. And the dialogue is corny while the writing doesn't make much sense. This movie did come out in November of the year 1999, which happens to be the same month and year as Toy Story 2, which is obviously a better movie than this, as the score felt very distracting, while the plot as well as the action sequences felt very disoriented. And if it were me, I would personally stick to the TV show, as they're better told than anything in this movie. I can't make sense of this movie. Is Ash a boy or a girl? I think he's a boy, but I couldn't tell you. And how is Mewtwo, aka a Pokemon, become a Pokemon master and other things as the world doesn't make much sense. And this is a mild non-recommendation, as when I get to the climax, and I thought that was quicker than any movie I've done for a review, that the plot can go all over the place. And at the end of the day, this movie is unfortunately kind of a mess. But it works for fans of the TV show versus the card games versus the Game Boy, which I have played all those and watched the show so many years ago. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Pokemon the Movie 2000. And until then, peek. Excuse me.